হ্যালো এভরিওয়ান, আমি সুমাইয়া আক্তার। আহ, সবাইকে অসংখ্য শুভেচ্ছা। কাইট ওয়েলনেস হাব প্রেজেন্টস Monalap episode 8, and today our live topic expressive arts with teens. And uh, we have we have a guest, Binita Modi. She is a practicing psychotherapist and clinical supervisor from India. Welcome to our live session. Welcome to our live session, and thank you so much for joining us from your busy schedule. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thank you, Sumaiya, for this live opportunity. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm doing good also. Okay, so now I just want to ask you some personal question about, like, out of curiosity. So basically, you are a mental health professional. So, what is the reason to choose this pathway, like to become a mental health professional? So, what was your like? I just want to know about your journey, actually.
My journey actually started with me wanting to work with children. Then I, in between, started to work with adults, and then came back to working more and more with children and adults and teens. So I think my journey has always involved an element of wanting to work with young people. Uh, and me wanting to be a therapist had a lot to do with how I connected with young people, just even growing up, and also being a young person in my own family. So I think it's something that really aligns with my own life journey.
This is really glad to know because I actually asked to all our guests, whoever join our live, that what was the like perception, what is the thought. So I really enjoyed to hear that. So now directly I will go to our topic, that expressive art. So first I just want to know, like, for our audience, what is actually expressive art? How will you define it?
Um, Traditionally, arts have been defined as, just painting and something that's visual. But expressive arts is something that includes all forms of expression. And that involves all your sensory ways in expressing. We express with our body, we express with our voice, we express with our with sound, we express. We also take in information like that, right? So broadly, under expressive arts, what is currently the norm is visual arts, or now the new word is sensory arts, anything that you can evoke sensations with. There is dance, there's drama, there's movement, there's music, there's voice. There's also play, which for the longest time was not included in expressive arts, but there's also play. So this just kind of in expressive arts therapy, this is basically ways in which creative ways in which we are trying to tap into expression, exploration, uh, and just unconscious processes to come to the fore when talk therapy doesn't do all the work. Yeah.
So these are the, like, main component of expressive art, like if dancing, then singing and everything. So, like, why do you feel it is more beneficial than conventional one-on-one client session?
I would
What do you think?
I wouldn't say it's more beneficial, but it is definitely an alternative and an added advantage when you have these expressive art therapies as a tool to work with people, because not everybody is a verbal processor. And whatever said and done, right? Talking about something difficult can always be daunting for a lot of people. When you have arts, what it does, it gives people options to be able to express themselves, to be able to explore something difficult while still keeping it safe, while still keeping it uh, within a more dealable space, is what I'd say. It's easier to absorb. It also allows people to make meaning on their own, right? Because it's not so much how they are making the art, but just the act of doing the art allows for a lot of creative expression and insights, which sometimes in cognitions in talking get lost.
You are working with teens, right? For
Yeah,
a
a lot of
Okay.
my work is
So
working with.
yeah. Uh, what type of problem they came with most?
In my experience, most of the teens I have worked with have been severe cases on the spectrum of depression, anxiety, ADHD, and also a lot of abuse and trauma cases. With teens, just as teens in the developmental stage they are, comes a lot of natural developmental conflicts that they go through. And on top of that, currently the population is dealing with a lot of these mental health concerns. So this is what I get to see in my practice, what I have worked with predominantly when it comes to teens.
Which age group basically you have you got the client? Which one? Like pre-puberty or after? What
I
about the
think it
age?
starts around the time when they're pre-teens, so it's something sometime around the time of 13 or 12 that is when they enter, and right up to when they are in their late teens or even young adults, I would say. That age group is a very volatile age group, I believe. It's just so much happening in their bodies, there's so much happening in their mind, and there's so much happening socially that they're trying to adapt to, that it's anyway a time of a lot of conflicts and a lot of exploration. And if you add to that other mental health challenges, right, environmentally or just
Mhm.
even what they are predisposed to, like depression, anxiety, or other traumas, I think it can be a very, very challenging time for many teenagers, especially now after the pandemic.
Okay, yeah, of course. Pandemic actually changes our social system and everything, especially mental health to everything for kids. It is really difficult to mingle with people. So yeah, it was really tough time for kids, of course, for teens, because they are they have passed a really bad time. They are only attending Zoom classes and everything. There is no social and emotional bonding and anything with friends. So yeah, of course, there is really a drastic change for them. So. Uh, So what do you think, for teens, expressive art actually work best for teens? What do you think?
I would say expressive arts is very good. I mean, in my experience, having used it with teenagers, it's very, very helpful in, I would say, hitting on a lot of challenges, right? Firstly, the idea of creative exploration is something that automatically is inherent in expressive arts. Second, with the developmental changes, especially with their bodies, that teenagers are going through, they get to really sense and feel their body through the arts. Like, I'll give you an example of uh, we do movement sessions with teenagers, and the way they move gives them a lot of space to feel into a lot of emotions in their bodies and express them without really being worried about what to call it, how to describe it, etc. Same with drama. When you're
Mm,
doing drama sessions with children, or I mean teenagers, there's so much they get to be, you know. This age group is about exploring who I am and who I want to be. And by doing something like drama, by allowing them to imagine and allowing them to embody a lot of characters and stories and role plays, they get to be what they want to be or what they're trying to be. So there's a lot of that that gets covered in expressive arts, especially with teenagers. And Even in therapy sessions and one-on-one sessions, I've often found that uh, this is a time, many times teenagers don't come into therapy on their own. They're either being brought or sent for whatever reason they're there. So anyway, talking becomes a challenge sometimes, right, where They'd rather talk to a peer, they'd rather talk to somebody their own age, they'd rather be independent in their decision making than have somebody constantly guiding them or asking them questions. That's when the art becomes like a buffer. The arts become like a buffer, they become a relief system where they don't have to talk, but their expression can do the work for them, and it meets the requirements of risk taking, of independent decision making, and so on and so forth.
Okay, that is okay. So I actually, what say? I was indulged into your talk that okay, these are really so much beneficial for teens, of course, because they are not so much expressive about their thought. They have their own world of peer group and everything. They don't like to take that any sort of help from anybody. If when it is from a completely a new person for them, so of course it is really beneficial. So what are some things to keep in mind while using it, like expressive art on your client?
I think the biggest thing here is to know that everybody's one way of expressing is different. So, same with teenagers and using expressive arts, I might use an art form very differently, and it will appeal to me very differently than it would appeal to a young person or a teenager. So, something that very often it's a good practice to take care of while uh, introducing teenagers to art forms is to not to focus so much on the technique and how good the art is, but what the art form really brings up in their awareness, in their I would say in their consciousness, how it makes them feel. What is it, what kind of skill building is it bringing up for them just by engaging with the arts? Is this bringing up some kind of leadership quality? Is it bringing up a sense of release and relief from something traumatic and difficult? Is that teaching them how to focus, especially with ADHD, right? They're able to focus just on painting that little
Mm,
thing you've given them. I think that needs to be the goal of expressive arts based work rather than how good the art form is and judging and
mm.
interpreting for ourselves. Let the child express and tell you what it means rather than the tell you what it means, then you interpreting it for them.
Yeah, of course, and every kids are different, so they have their own way of express anything. So one more question actually roaming around in my head, uh, that is about actually parenting and everything. So basically, if we have like look back to our millennials, so their upbringing mostly uh, were into like authoritarian side. But if now we like now if this generation like Gen Z or Gen Alpha, their parents are more cool, more open to everything, sometimes permissive. But after all that, they always complain. The teens always complain, "You don't understand me. You don't get my FOMO, fear of missing out." Okay, so like there has always a problem. Parents don't understand. Parents are more like, "I'm friendly. I try to understand my kids well." But what is the problem? What is the problem? What do you think? What is the problem actually?
Um, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's just that they're in a stage in their life at teenagers and adolescence is a time when they will naturally lean more towards their own social peer group. They're really trying to fit in. They're trying to find their own place and space in their age group. So I would say it's a necessary requirement for them to rebel. And the rebellion is not from a place of not being understood, not always, but it's also from a place of even that developmentally is a required need for a teenager to move from being dependent on a parent to becoming independent in their decision making and in their uh, just transition to adulthood. So one is the just natural aspect of not getting along with parents, and the other place is I think education system is changing, the way people learn and exposure is changing. So definitely the ways in which the upbringing for the previous generations has been, there's largely been a shift in how the upbringing has changed for the younger generation now, or the generation now in general. So I think that makes a difference. And again, that's where the expressive arts can be a great medium, because art doesn't see age. You know, the talking can have the age component in it and the differences, but in arts, even an adult as old as 80 years old or 50 years old can associate with a form of play that a 17-year-old will be able to associate with. So that's the beauty of even expressive arts in that way, where it kind of breaks down the barriers between parents and children and teenagers, especially.
Very nicely described, and thank you for sharing me. You have described everything, I guess, for our audience. Uh, they already get some answers. So now we will take some question from our audience. Uh, Mir Amrin Hossein Mim বলেছে using journals, poetry or books leave a meaningful impact on life. Uh, are you like uh, uh, there's a or you agree with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they can have a meaningful impact. I'm just wondering, in terms of for teens or just in general, I think it's useful for everybody. But like I said, with journals, poetry, and books, it depends on the kind of art form that is appealing to the individual, right? If I work with a very young child, or if I work with teenagers who are neurodivergent, right, who cannot
Mhm.
read well, they really don't like reading, may find it better to journal with pictures and drawings rather than writing, right?
Yeah,
They
of
may
course.
prefer music lyrics, then they would prefer poetry if they really can't grasp it, if they're not good at language, right? They may prefer books over books. They may prefer animated movies, or
Mhm.
or something different that really appeals to them. They may prefer movies. They may prefer theater. So I
Yeah.
think what is meaningful and impactful for that person will come from their own life experience and their own lived experience and engagement
Mhm.
with the arts.
Uh, One of our audience wrote this such an unique and interesting topic. Thank you so much. And there is one more question, that is, can you use expressive art activity during the online session?
Absolutely, absolutely. I we've with other people and with the teenagers I currently work with. I currently work with a lot of people only online, uh,
Okay.
and there is so much room to get creative. We think it's just the screen, but there is so much that can be done if facilitated well. You know, there is sound, there's music, there's acting in a screenwriting. As I'm speaking, also it's there. So you really don't need big stuff. It's the idea of also getting creative yourself when working with somebody online, right? The great part about expressive arts is it's not just the teenager that needs to be creative. It
Mhm.
forces you also, as a clinician, as a therapist, to think of creative ways to engage somebody. And that's the beauty of it, where it's co-created. It's not a one-way street.
We're taking one more question, that is, we often see teenagers are behaving distant figure towards their parents. How expressive art can overcome this struggle?
Um, True. It's very true that teenagers tend to be sometimes distant from their parents. Expressive arts, I can give you an example of this, right?
Yeah, of course.
If you make a family play with a teenager, where the teenager has a lot of power and they get to decide and kind of be a leader, you make a competitive sport out of a very simple activity like, say, kabaddi, or you play football, and you put all the family members into a game. That in itself can be a place of connection. Same way, if you have an art project, if the teenager needs to, say, build a project and the parent is involved, not as the one suggesting, but the teenager is given the power to tell the parent what to do, or be in a team together in a game, in a music performance, where the idea is not to win, but the idea is to create something. Very often that can be a place to bring them together. It won't necessarily resolve conflicts, but it will initiate connections. It will foster a safe place for the teenager and the parent to have conversations, or to see each other differently. We do this trick sometimes in drama therapy where we switch roles. We make the parent the teenager, and we make the teenager the parent.
Okay.
And then we give them scenarios to work with, and it's really fun because then they're just enacting, but it's fun to see each other, reflections of each other, and learn from each other in that space. And that's how you kind of
Yeah.
decrease the power
Mm.
gap. The biggest thing that happens with parents and teenagers is parents sometimes forget that they were also teenagers at some point,
Yeah, of
right?
course. And parents can understand that when they act as a like switching role on their parents' role, they understand. Oh, okay, I made this bad behavior with my kid or anything, or maybe bad decisions. And they easily can get the things. So one more question I see on our comment box: does expressive art therapy differ from culture to culture?
Yes and no. I think yes, because the arts have come from different cultures. So definitely some cultures will have appreciation for certain forms of art forms more than the other. Uh, and each culture will use music, for example, in a different context. We might use Bollywood music, there might be Rabindra Sangeet in Bangladesh, there might be pop
Yeah.
culture. So the
Mm.
language and all, yes, will differ, but the overall benefits of expressive arts remain the same. Because as humans, we connect through our senses and through our nonverbals a lot more. So at the end of the day, the therapeutic benefits will differ, again based on your lived
Mm.
experience, how the art is used, but in some ways it's also universal. I think it has the power to break
Mm.
barriers, to break cultural barriers, to be honest.
So basically, component can differ, like
Yeah.
if the play and everything, but the main point, the core point is really universal for expressive art.
The
So
benefits are universal,
yeah,
absolutely.
benefit. Okay, okay. So now we are at the end of our session. Though I really don't want to cut it here because there's a lot to know, and already one of our audience wrote that excellent discussion. So, uh, would you like to share two lines for our audience from Bangladesh and India?
I always struggle with two lines. um, I think since we are on the topic of expressive arts and
Yeah.
working with teenagers, I think in both things, the one thing that is common is giving agency and choice to teenagers. Also, while using expressive arts, that's a main point. If we can create a safe place where the teenagers can have choice and have agency without judgment, uh, to use whatever art form they have to express themselves, I think it will do wonders for their mental health. And it will also do wonders for them developing into healthier adults. That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you so much for making time to talk with us. And I'm really grateful. And it was really, really nice discussion. And I guess our audience already said that. So thank you so much, all of our audience, to bear with us. And be happy, keep smiling. Now we will end our session for today. Hopefully, we will see you in the maybe in next maybe some different Monalap session or Monalap live. So there is some more comment. I really want to read it. One, informative session. Love it. So informative. So thank you so much, all of our audience. So now we will end our session. Thank you.
Thank you.